defense is going to be a big topic.
Has to be.
The Broncos just beat the Colts off the back of their defense.
Love it.
In the second half, multiple drives that ended in an interception, a forced fumble return for a touchdown because it wasn't technically a pick six. They're calling it a forced fumble now.
I hate that, but whatever.
You had turnover on downs. You had multiple punts in that game. Bo Nix those 3 interceptions, and the Broncos still found a way to win. And we will talk about the Broncos, but I wouldn't feel right in myself if I didn't mention Jonathan Taylor's play. Because I really do think that one play led the spark to the Broncos coming back. It was about to be 20-7. Bo Nix wasn't playing well. That defense was going to be able to pin their ears back and just play soft zone coverage. The Colts this was their chance to make the playoffs. I mean, Anthony Richardson, his chance to lead the Colts to the playoffs in his rookie season. And Jonathan Taylor cost them the game. I really think it goes back to that one play. And I'm not trying to mitigate all the great things the Broncos did. But I just can't believe he dropped the ball before he got into the end zone.
So crazy,
it was really one of the stupidest plays I've ever seen. Like, I just don't know why you just don't hold on to the ball.
And also looking at it, it's so close.
So close.
If they would have called it a touchdown, I'd have said, okay, I get it. That's fine with me.
It
a lot
really was
closer than
close.
Corley's. A lot closer
Yeah.
than
Oh my
Corley's.
God, that
Corley's
was
like
so
a yard
close.
short.
So close to the point that you thought the tip of the
Facts.
football crossed the plane.
Yeah.
Like, that's how close it was to where, like you said, if they just let it stand, you can't say nothing about it. You
Can we
can't say it
also
was a bad
say,
call.
it's not as if that play happened and we scored the very next drive. We didn't.
Yeah.
We punted the ball after that. They still had multiple chances, and our defense really hadn't stepped up in that first half. In the first few drives of the game, I had a genuine knot in my stomach.
Running down the field.
Of course, as a fan, I got a chance at the playoffs. I got a little bit more anxiety on my side watching this game, but legitimately watching AR march down the field.
First drive especially, yeah.
Oh my God, that was a flawlessly executed drive by the Indianapolis Colts, and JT looks like prime JT against us. And I'll give you some credit, Dels, because you were talking about how our rush defense hasn't looked as strong recently, and I kind of felt a certain type of way. But hey, in this game, you were pretty right about that. I give JT and AR some love there. But then, of course, you have Bo Nix not playing at 100%. He has that touchdown, a great pass to Adam Troutman. That was really exciting. I thought that was a great bounce back after having that early INT. And it kind of stung because the first few passing plays, on time, making some nice throws, and then you kind of just get off platform. You get a little erratic, and you throw it over the middle of the field for an unnecessary INT. That was a bummer. But the turnaround that the Broncos had as a whole, defense and offense included, because in that second half, we came to play. We were not fucking around. AR looked like the AR that we've seen for a majority of the season against us. Not in that first quarter like he had looked and the Colts had looked. A lot of love needs to be given to so many different people on this defense. First off, we have to give love to, of course, Nick Bonito, what he's been able to do. Second in sacks, another touchdown this season. I love the ESPN stat. It always moves me. The first player since 2014 DPOY, J.J. Watt, to have 10-plus sacks and 2 touchdowns. Love an ESPN stat like that, especially when you're putting in a name with J.J. Watt. But Nick Bonito has been a game changer for us. We have so many game changers on that defensive line, and that's been the difference from us in years past to this year. Where last year we created a lot of turnovers, but this year we're getting a lot of turnovers, but we're also getting pressure on the quarterback. A lot of credit to Vance Joseph. But Nick Bonito, Zach Allen, Jonathan Cooper, that trio right there moves the fuck out of me. They get me going every single week because of the pressure they can get on a quarterback. Nick Bonito's reaping the benefits of it now because he's finishing plays. But like you've mentioned to me on multiple occasions, Zach Allen still leads the team in pressures. Him having this level of season this late into his career at the age of 27, where as our best players, he's our oldest player on our team. For him to have that level of impact this late into his career, it's exciting. And then, of course, the DPOY, either first or second right now. If you want to say your boy's the defensive player of the year, I'll shake your hand. TJ Watt is one of my favorite players in the league. His impact that he leaves on a game, even in this game versus Philadelphia, you felt it. But what he does week in, week out against the opposing team's best player, it's unbelievable. It's really ridiculous how high of a level Pat Surtain is playing at right now. Defensive player of the month last month. This whole season, he's allowed less than 200 yards. He's been a freak of nature, and why do you still throw in his vicinity? I couldn't tell you. 4 INTs on the year, a player of that caliber should have 0. You should never throw in his direction. There's so many great moments in this game where you have the second half start, and Bo Nix throws that first INT, which I thought was his worst throw of the game. Just completely sails it over Cortland Sutton, right into the defender's hand, bad throw. Then has another interception. But the defense continuously makes play after play, and that's what I kind of banked on coming into this game, that our defense would stand out, that our defense would be the main reason we walk away. Because you and I have been talking about it. This Colts defense has played significantly better significantly better from where it started early on in the season, got a little bit healthy, and we're starting to see it play a significant amount better. But Bo Nix, too, settled down. He threw those 2 INTs. After that, we got the ball back. After the nice forced fumble by PJ Locke, he goes and has that play going to the opposite side, sees Kroll, gets into the end zone. Nice yak play there. But then, of course, you have multiple throws where our receivers are selling him too. Cortland Sutton, who's been one of our best players this year, he has 2 drops. One that could have been a touchdown, the next one on 3rd down. You have Vele drop a ball on 3rd down. Troy Franklin, who you can't trust to catch a cold right now. There's just so many times where we see him also get sold by his receivers. Then on top of it, he was playing pretty poorly himself. It just was a bad offensive performance. And then I haven't even talked about our run game, which was non-existent.
It's been bad also.
For the defense to step up in that fashion, but then for Bo Nix to also find the confidence again after throwing 3 INTs and 2 second-half INTs, that really is what impressed me the most. There's a lot of resilience with our team, from the offense to the defense. Defense started shitty, we locked in. Offense started shitty, really was shitty for a majority of this game, but they were able to still figure it out, and we're still able to win by double digits. This Broncos team's legit. It's a fun team, and even when it doesn't look the best, they still find ways to win. That's the difference between this Broncos team and a lot of the years past.
This was the most resilient win of the season. Bo Nix settled down. The field position granted to him.
Beautiful.
I mean, the field position he was basically at midfield. He only had to make a couple throws until the end zone.
That Sutton route, bro, he kills that corner. Gets wide open for the tutty.
Yeah, they settled down once the defense started to do their thing. Really, this is a defense-first team. That's what
For sure.
has gotten them this far. They're the first-ranked defense in terms of points allowed. I do think Pat Surtain's DPOY, and what makes him such a special player is kind of like how James Harden said he's not in a system. He is a system. That's what Surtain is. When you have a player as special as Pat Surtain, who you can put on any wide receiver and you don't have to worry about that wide receiver for the entirety of the game, it changes how you can play defense. You can stack the box more. You can send more pressure at the quarterback. You can trust them on islands. And that's something that I wish the Jets would do more with Sauce Gardner, because I do think he's a special type of talent, but they pigeonhole him into playing just strictly zone defense. And we saw with the Broncos last year when they did that, Vance Joseph and the Broncos defense got off to a pretty tough start, but then they started to change their identity. But that identity change has really come this offseason with them really making a point of emphasis to play a physical brand of football. And even with Riley Moss being out, this defense was able to make plays. You talk about Zach Allen, Jonathan Cooper, and Nick Benito. They're playing at an insane level. John Franklin Myers also, Malcolm Roach as well. They have 5 to 6 defensive linemen that are able to bother the quarterback.
A rookie balled out too. Chris Abrams-Drain, bro, he played a hell of a game this past week.
They have multiple players they're able to rely on. In terms of the DPOY conversation, right now it's very tough. I try to categorize this into 3 different position groups. The only linebacker that I think is worthy of it is Zach Bond this year.
Okay, Zach,
Fred Warner, the Niners are losing. I can hear the conversation. When I was looking at the just insane defensive players this season, a lot of them are playing for losing teams. Myles Garrett leads the NFL in pressures with 70, but he's not going to be in this conversation because the Browns don't have a good defense and they're not relevant this year. Micah Parsons, another guy. The Cowboys are not relevant. The 49ers, Nick Bosa, not relevant. Dexter Lawrence with the Giants, not really relevant right now. So a lot of the top-end defensive talent really have gotten removed from this conversation because of team record. So when I look at the teams that have a great record and great defenses, I really look at the defensive line. You have TJ Watt. You have Jonathan Grenard. You have Daniil Hunter. You have Will Anderson. You have Nick Benito. You have Chris Jones, who I still think deserves consideration in this conversation. And when I look down a list, there's only one defensive back that is seriously in a conversation. That's Pat Surtain. And amongst all defensive linemen, it's close. You can pick and choose who you want. But I think the Broncos having the number 1 ranked defense and that being led by a corner and what he's been able to do with the interceptions that he has this year and how they're able to play defense differently than everybody else because they have him, I think he is the defense player of the year. He's changed his defense the most than any other player. Like TJ Watt is having a tremendous season. When Alex Highsmith is healthy and Nick Herbig, they're also producing at an elite level. I mean, they got multiple. Cameron Hayward also is like a DPOY level candidate,
bro.
Yeah.
What is
At
he
35,
on?
he's
Yeah, so like the Steelers really
get him a Super Bowl as a Hall of Famer.
is TJ Watt and Cam Hayward. They're both playing at a DPOY level. So, Pat Surtain has really stuck out to me with the Broncos this year.
Absolutely. I think one of the coolest stats is when you look at the state of this AFC, there's only 2 teams that are top 10 offenses and top 10 defenses in points per game. Steelers and the Broncos. And I think that highlights for Denver just how special their defense has been. Yeah, but their offense has maximized some of their parts. And I think one of the more underrated factors of this team is the coaching and the way in which they've been able to really maximize their front seven and their scheme and their cornerbacks. And at a certain point, the Broncos are that team in the playoffs where, sure, the AFC is difficult, but not too many teams want to play them between the Chiefs and the Bills and the tough matchups they've had with Denver the last couple of years. And that shows 2 things to me. I think, number 1, this Broncos defense is one that can win you a playoff game if Bo Nick's able to play clean and the running game gives just a little bit more juice. But then 2, it's really one of those few teams like Pittsburgh that you don't want to play because they force you to play their own brand of football. And especially, when you're playing there as well, I just think this is one of the best stories in football this year. And then we talk about Defensive Player of the Year, and a lot of the guys have been dropped out of the conversation. Ian Hutchinson is another one of those names. And I joked with you before the show about it, but when you talk about DPOY, it's TJ Watt and Patrick Surtain, but after those 2 guys, it's a short list of names between Will Anderson, Nick Bonito, maybe Danielle Hunter, and to have 2 of the top 5 candidates for Defensive Player of the Year, maybe 6 if we want to toss in Cam Hayward. It is a testament to the fact that this team's done a hell of a job drafting in recent years. The front office work has been really good.
Penn. We always believed.
Really, just maybe one move didn't work out quite well for you, but I think overall,
It's a fact.
it worked out quite well for us thus far through 8-9 games.
Russ
but-
had people wanting George Patton gone.
True, but I think that's really the unsung hero. The amount of talent and youth they've added in this defense the last few years, testament to pretty good drafting.
Yeah, I think, honestly, it kind of goes against what I was arguing earlier with Josh Allen Lamar. Like, Josh Allen Lamar, similar seasons, give it to Josh Allen. But that's how I feel right now with PS2 because he's having a great season. I'm not trying to undermine what he's doing, but typically these awards go to defensive linemen, right? Typically these goes to the guys that have 17, 18 sacks. They lead league in pressures, but I feel like there's not really a defensive lineman this season outside of Hutchinson because, of course, he got injured, a couple months ago, that's been having this unworldly season. Like TJ Watt, I think is 2nd in sacks right now, but he's like 25th in pressures, right? He's not consistently. He has one of the lower pass rush win rates of his career, although you could, point holes in that stat or whatnot. But I feel like all of these guys, whether it's Grenard, Hunter, all of the defensive linemen that are leading the league in sacks, like they're leading the league in sacks, but they're not having the type of impact that we've seen in years past from defensive players of the year. So the reason why corners typically don't win is because it's very difficult to measure their impact, right? Like when Stephon Gilmore won it, he had a great season, don't get me wrong, but he also led the league in interceptions. The fact that PS2 has 4 picks is basically like leading the league in interceptions because he is the best corner in the NFL. Correct. He is now someone that more often than not should be throwing the ball his way, right? Like if you see PS2 on the right side of the field, no matter who he's on, if it's your wide receiver 1, my first read, no matter what coach says, is I'm going to look left first because more likely than not, he's going to be locked up. So when it's a season where there isn't this like ungodly sack number or pressure number or a defense is just heading above everyone else, that's where I feel like you could go to a position that doesn't get as much credit as it deserves. Because like obviously I always thought in 2009 Revis should have won. Sure. And of course Stephon Gilmore a couple years ago, that was great to see. But Pat Surtain has been one of a top 2 corner, because Sauce fell off, has been a top 2 corner in football for years and years and years. But for a couple of years, the Broncos defense wasn't as great. Of course, you had just edge rushers and defensive linemen be dominating, so they were always in the talks for Defensive Player of the Year. But you have everything going for you if you're PS2. You are undisputed best corner in the league. You have one of the best defenses in football, and this is the year to do it. You have 4 interceptions, right? I'm rooting for him to win it because I really don't think the defensive linemen, any of them, really stand out to me. So it'd be dope to see PS2 get it. Nick Bonito's in there as well, but I think if you're giving to anyone on Denver, it's got to be PS2.
No doubt.